What's up, oddities? So I got a few things on my mind. I made myself some notes because I didn't want to forget. Things are insane. I'm sure you all can agree. The chaos is unbelievable online. Partly purposeful, partly just because people have been psychologically manipulated to the point where they're just kind of losing it. But we'll talk about that more in a minute. You know, we have this whole great American comeback, golden age idea, and we could get into the theosophical idea of the golden age and all that, but what I'm going to talk about is, there's so much patriotic talk, and a lot of people, I swear, mostly older people, but a lot of people seem to think that America's on a comeback. We're more patriotic than ever. We're more conservative, more Christian than ever. And I don't buy that for a minute. I think that things have more of the facade. The leadership has more of a facade of those things. And they're doing that so they can co-opt the people and get their trust, like leadership always does. But, if your idea of patriotism equals statism, then that is opposite of patriotism. And I would just tell people to go back and look at what a lot of the founding fathers said about government, not trusting it, holding it accountable, and those kinds of things. And there's virtually no inter-party accountability. If you support one of the two government parties, you support one of the only two allowable government-sponsored factions. So you can't be pushing for patriotism. You can't be pushing for more liberty and more freedom or even more Christianity, because these people that they've chosen to be the Christian leadership, people like Paula White, Lance Walnut, these kinds of people in the NAR that are talking about civil wars and all kinds of crazy stuff and their prosperity gospel and all this different stuff, those are the people that they've put in charge of leading this new Christian America, this Christian comeback, if you will. They're not going to put anybody in there with real integrity, because they wouldn't last long, because politics is the dirtiest game out there. And so nobody who is actually righteous could last very long among these people working hand in hand with the government. That's just a fact. People have their fantasies, and that's all they are. They're fantasies. And I'm not trying to blackpill you. I'm just telling you the truth that you need to hear. You can't trust these people. You think you can trust Paula White? Come on. And these people, they don't oppose government power. In fact, they don't really even oppose giving the Democrats more power, because, as I talk about all the time, and more people should be talking about, when you give power to your party, or you allow them to do these things that you think is only going to hurt the enemy, well, guess what? It's going to hurt you down the line, because it's the same government. The same government. And so the next Democrat regime will use all those powers that you allowed the Republican MAGA Trump regime to have. And we should think about that now, because of Pam Bondi talking about hate speech, and Trump saying, well, maybe the people that, report bad things on him or whatever, or say bad things on him, are engaging in hate speech. These loose kind of comments could go a long way to really destroying the First Amendment, which used to mean something to people on the right, but it doesn't any longer, because we've become so petty that all we want to do is get one over on the libs. But a lot of times getting one over on the libs via government actually hurts us. We're actually giving the government more power as a whole. Every presidential administration gives the next administration more power. And so that's definitely something that more people need to think about. It's the two-party system, but it really is the uniparty at the end of the day, because a lot of the same moneyed interests control and fund both sides. And we know that with AIPAC, but we see that with a lot of these very wealthy donors too. The technocrats rule either way. They've got a big part in government either way. It doesn't matter. And so I've been saying, the motto of the new right Not that the old right in the last, I don't know how many years, has been good, but the new right should be, hey, at least we don't call ourselves Democrats. You know, they may do some things that the Democrats do and change the name of a policy or whatever, and nobody cares. It's pretty much the same thing. You know, most people just see the world through political party lenses. And again, we're only allowed two parties. And if you think about things in terms of mass persuasion, propaganda, psychological warfare, what the narrative is and where is it leading, you know, what the potential consequences are of policies or narratives, who has motive, who profits from it, could reverse psychology be involved, all these different things that I talk about. What is perhaps the expected reaction from both parties when a policy is implemented or something is said or something is threatened? I mean, these are things that we need to take into consideration because things are moving quickly. And again, people have become so emotional that they're allowing their own party to do things that are going to hurt them very soon down the line. Even this talk, and this won't be popular, but even this talk about labeling Antifa as a terrorist organization. I saw Jack Pobasaic, or however you say his name, he tweeted that maybe we should start going door to door on Antifa, or nighttime raids or something. I forget exactly how he put it, but that's what he was saying. And I've been saying all along that this just opens up the door for the next Democrat regime to bust open your door, patriots, constitutionalists, First and Second Amendment advocates. It's all the same government. Grow up. Losers. Fanboys. The fanboyification of the right is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. We act like children. But, you know, we need to think about things instead of just reduce things to these cheap, childish rivalries between the parties. Yeah, one side may be a little better on some things than the other, but again, at the end of the day, it's the same government, and a lot of times your own party is the one that hurts you the worst. And I'm a broken record on this, but I know more people will see this. A lot of times your own party is the one that hurts you the worst because you allow them to do things, and you're always looking at the opposition because, face it, this MAGA media industrial complex of grifters, endless grifters, they keep the people so upset, always looking at the left, and they never look inward at what's going on. And they're so caught up in emotions that they're willing to let the regime do just about anything to get the opposition. And that's where they want you. Very emotional. Very emotional. So you'll go along with what they want to do. You know, and when we get so emotional, we don't focus on a lot of important facts. We focus on what they want us to focus on. And I want to talk a little bit about nationalism because my friend Jeremy had posted something about Christian nationalism last night. And I wanted to just kind of mention what I was thinking, because some nationalism, if you're going to have a country, it's needed, I suppose, and it's also natural. You know, and some of the things that these white nationalists, these whatever you want to call them, Christian nationalists, want to do is actually good, of course, because things got so far left that they were going communist and going just insane. And when that happens, when one side goes insane, then the other gets insane as well. So that's something you have to worry about. And I think that with a lot of this nationalist stuff, it's not exactly Americans' first nationalism. Even though it's portrayed that way, it's actually statism. And these people want to build up the government even bigger because they want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of the control mechanism of the government. Now, not average people, they're not going to have any control, even though they probably imagine they might have more freedom and control. You don't build government up to get more freedom and liberty. That's antithetical to freedom. I mean, again, consult the founders on that, regardless of what you think about them. they had a lot of good information and good comments, articles and things on holding government accountable, keeping it small and controllable, which it's way, way out of control, and neither party is going to make it smaller and decrease their power. Why would you decrease your power while you've got it? You're there because you're an opportunist in the first place. It's not like these people care about you, you know? It's worse than thinking the stripper likes you, because I've actually known a few people back in my band days that actually dated strippers. These politicians, you'll never meet them. They don't know you exist, and they couldn't care less if you exist or what happens to you and your family. Stop being such a fantasist. And I know a lot of people that watch this, they're not like that. But I know you guys know people that are, and we see it online all the time. Kind of lost my train of thought here. But yeah, about the statism, you know, the statism is not nationalism. Statism is building up the government and making it more powerful. And they're building it up not for patriotic reasons, not for Americans' first reasons. Again, it's so they can have the power. They and their cronies can have the power. That lust for power and wealth seems to be unavoidable, man. Just look back through history. Plus, you know, talk about the NAR nationalist types, these Christian nationalists. Is it the National Apostolic Reformation or something like that? I know my friend Laura talks about that on Magical Mystery Church, and she does a great job. So check out her YouTube if you haven't, because she exposes what these people are talking about. They talk about civil war, and they even talk about civil war between themselves and Christians, other Christians that are not on board with these 7 mountain mandates, which the St. Charlie Kirk was in favor of and didn't change his mind as far as I know. And the thing about having Christians in charge of the government, again, the government is the dirtiest thing out there, the dirtiest thing imaginable, and has been for centuries. So you're not going to get good Christians in there. Or if you do, they won't last long at all anyway. And so you're not going to be ruled by these good, righteous men and women. Again, Paula Dean. Or Paula White, excuse me. Wrong blonde. So you don't want this cronyism in there because of that lust for power that always corrupts. And you don't want these religious types in there that are pushing for civil war. That's not what Jesus taught. I mean, pick up the Bible and actually read the New Testament instead of this kind of Old Testament Jewish kind of mentality of an eye for an eye. Great, my computer's locked up here. Try to pull these notes up here. You know, one of the main phrases that I've seen since the Kirk thing is, it was like all of Conservative Inc. started posting, this is a turning point in America, right? Just like the old Libby media, the old legacy media would say the same word or phrase. They did the same thing, and they do the same thing on X all the time. It's the same exact kind of psychological warfare, propaganda. And I do believe that it is a turning point, because it seems like there's a subversion of the right that is now solidified completely. People have become unreasonable to the point, I think we live now in the age of unreason. So I do believe it's a turning point. And not just for the right, but also for the truther world, because they've kind of lost their minds, because there's so many conspiracies and so much chaos out there. And people stay so wrapped up in party media and party propaganda, which I've been saying is, you know, party propaganda is mostly just PR for the presidential administrations. They're not going to tell you the bad things most of the time. And you look at these people like the Hodge twins, and just a lot of these people on the right now talk about Zionism, but they totally leave Trump's part out of it all the time when he's one of the biggest Zionists out there. So these guys are not completely on your side. They're half-assing it, and they're not to be trusted either, even though they do say some things that are correct sometimes, for sure. The people, average people, need to understand, you know, the old Nietzsche quote. He talked about staring into the abyss, or actually he talked about fighting monsters, And when you fight the monsters, be careful, because they sometimes stare back at you, or actually he said the abyss stares back at you. And so I feel like a lot of people are staring at the abyss, and the abyss is staring back at them. What I mean by that is, like, they've went into fighting the opposition and the Dems and the Libs so hard that they're becoming like the Dems and the Libs, and willing to resort to their actions and what they do. And that never turns out good. It never turns out the way people think it does. You let the monsters destroy you a lot of times in your quest to destroy the monsters. Just a part of history, a part of life. Because people, they don't go about things in a way, with cool heads and common sense. And I've been saying that a lot of the conservative movement are poser patriots and con artist Christians. And they really are, if you pay attention. And I want to get to what's happened with the truther media, or truthers just in general, not even just the media. It's like everybody's calling everybody controlled opposition if they disagree on one thing. And I've been there and I've done that. But I think we need to start giving each other a little bit more room, and we all need to kind of back away from stories and different things we see and hear, and think about them more, instead of just having knee-jerk reactions like the normies always have. So, people will say so-and-so's a controlled opposition, and it'll get hundreds of likes, and they won't say why they think that. They won't say, a lot of times, this is the reason why I think they're controlled opposition. They have this connection to so-and-so, or they said this recently, or they belong to this organization. A lot of it's just blanket statements, and I think that's really bad. You need to say why you believe that and help people to understand, instead of just making it name-calling, basically. And I said that recently on social media, and people got really upset. And it's like, why would you be upset when somebody's just trying to push the truth and push accountability and push details? But people don't like to be called out because it makes them feel insecure. You can say, I have suspicions that this person might be controlled opposition, might be connected to this, that, or the other organization, government, etc. But be detailed about it. And again, I've been in the same boat. I'm just trying to do a better job. And lastly, I've been into conspiracies for so long, it's like I'm not nearly as reactionary as I used to be. I try not to flip out at every pyramid, triangle, hand sign, and those kinds of things anymore. I prefer to take a step back, like I said, and think, weigh the evidence, take some time away from it. But people who are reactionary, they can't handle that, and they'll start calling you controlled opposition and whatever, It just gets insane. So just have a little common sense, truth or world. Bring back a little common sense. Be more factual. Look into things a little deeper. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know what's going on, but I know that it's not right. I know that the official narrative is not correct. It's okay to say that you don't quite know, because many of us don't. And a lot of people run around on social media pretending like they know everything for 100% and get a lot of people attaboying them. And those people then will reshare that information as if it's 100% gospel truth, when it's not in the least. And again, I know this because I've been into conspiracies for many, many years. I've got the word "The Conspiracy" tattooed on my arm since I was 19. It was my band, but we did that because we were looking into conspiracies at the time. So I'm running up on 50 years old, and so I've been looking into conspiracies for a while now, and I feel like I'm finally able to kind of back off and not be so reactionary and over the top about it. And you don't have to be. You can keep a cool head and talk about these things. You don't have to be that tinfoil hat wearing person that a lot of the normies think you are. You can actually approach things with common sense and add information, add evidence, just like a detective or whatever. And that's what you should do, in my opinion. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Cheers and blessings. And remember, their order is not our order. See you guys.